Welcome to the Phil Files Christian Edition, where we dive deep into the heart of Scripture. And in this season, we're taking a journey through the entire Scripture, through a lot of the stories from Scripture. And I'm David. I'm your host, David Phillips. And so today we're going to explore Genesis 1:11 through 13. The NIV version says, "Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And so it was. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day." That passage is powerful in its simplicity, but rich in its meaning. It's part of the larger creation narrative in Genesis, describing the creation of the world by God. And here we see the creation of vegetation on the third day, which is both literal and symbolic. To unpack this, let's look at the background of this text. The scholars believe that Genesis was compiled during the second millennium BCE, though some argue for a later date during the Babylonian exile. But it has been attributed to Moses. Pardon me, I got stopped up. I'm nasally. All this stuff is going around. I'm sure you've seen it too. So, what stands out with this creation narrative is the monotheistic narrative of creation ex nihilo, or creation out of nothing, by a singular sovereign God, and it's quite distinct and significant through the ancient Near East. The language is also rhythmic and repetitive, which emphasizes the orderliness of creation. The phrase "according to their kinds" suggests intentional diversity and order, contrasting with the chaos that existed in other creation myths like the Enuma Elish. It's interesting how this language conveys a structured and purposeful creation. For instance, the Hebrew word dasha, used here, that means produce, implies a dynamic process of sprouting or growing. The emphasis on seed-bearing plants and fruit-bearing trees highlight the self-sustaining nature of creation. It's a theme of sustainability and continuity. It's quite profound. And the imagery in these verses is rich with symbolic significance. The land producing vegetation symbolizes life, fertility, and growth. In the biblical world, vegetation was crucial for sustenance. It symbolized God's provision and abundance. And then the repetition of "according to their kinds" also acts as a marker of differentiation and order. It reflects God's nature as a God of order. In semiotic terms, the vegetation represents life and the sustaining power of the divine word. It's fascinating how seeds signify potential and future growth. And the phrase "and God saw that it was good" is a recurring motif in the creation narrative. It signifies divine approval and underscores the inherent goodness of the created world. This approval is not just about creation's beauty, but a theological statement about its intrinsic worth. Creation is valuable. Anything that God deems good is valuable, with a purpose and a plan. And so theologically, these verses highlight God's sovereignty, the goodness of creation, and the interconnectedness of life. God's command for the land to produce vegetation demonstrates his divine authority over the natural world. It's a powerful affirmation of a single omnipotent God creating with purpose. And the goodness of creation is a profound reminder of God's original intent for harmony and flourishing. Even in a world filled with suffering, this challenges us to view the natural world as a reflection of God's character, urging responsible engagement with it. The interconnectedness of life is another crucial insight. Seed-bearing plants and trees emphasize life's interdependence and nature's cycles. This aligns with the biblical call for stewardship, where humans are caretakers of creation. In fact, our first job was to be a caretaker of the garden. Now, in our contemporary culture, these verses speak to environmental ethics and ecological responsibility. We have a responsibility for this world. We have a responsibility to protect it. We have a responsibility to nurture it. And we have a responsibility to make sure that our ecosystems don't collapse. We don't have to go to extremes, but either way, where we don't care at all, or we care so much that it drives everything that we do, we don't have to deal with in the extremes. But it is our responsibility to be stewards, to be caretakers of the world in which we live. So with environmental and ecological crises like climate change and deforestation, the biblical mandate is to care for creation, and it's never been more urgent. And then you have the depiction of self-sustaining creation. That invites us to reflect on our role in maintaining ecological balance. The seed-bearing nature of plants is a metaphor for sustainability, encouraging practices that promote long-term ecological health. And the affirmation of creation's goodness challenges this exploitive nature and the exploitive views of nature. It calls for a shift for seeing nature merely as a resource to nature as a sacred trust, promoting harmony and respect for the environment. Again, you don't have to go to either extreme, but it does challenge us in how we care and steward creation. And so Genesis 1 through 13 is rich with meaning and relevance, from its context to its theological implications. It offers profound insights into how we should engage with creation today. And by reflecting on that passage, we're invited to honor the Creator by caring for creation, striving for a world that mirrors the goodness and order intended by God in Genesis. It's a great discussion on faith and ecology and the ethics of our time. Thanks for joining us on the Phil Files Christian Edition today. We hope you find this exploration enlightening. We hope you find the journey through Scripture enlightening and encouraging and challenging as well. Until next time, keep pondering, keep questioning, and keep believing. Have a great day.